a super secret location deep within the mountains of Colorado, it's time to strap up, strap in, or strap on with your host, Shenanigans in One Shot. It's From the Ashes Radio!
We are live.
How
do we sound, ladies and gentlemen? I got to hear from you folks. Welcome to the new From the Ashes studio. Thank you to Raid Skateboards for all of the decorations. Thank you to Thigh Huggers. Thank you to, who else? Combat Flip Flops. Thank you to everybody that made a donation and made this possible. We are also live on WTF Moments this evening. So there's going to be lots of additional guests and lots of additional questions. We are live on From the Ashes studio on About Face Media. So thanks a lot for all of your support, folks. Let us know how the audio is and how we sound. Junior, thanks for being here tonight. Crystal, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Looking for your feedback to find out how these new microphones sound.
Especially this one.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because you got a shiny new boom. You can, so dude, you can like mess with it.
I've been playing with it, but I don't want to play with it too much. Otherwise it looks like,
you're not going to break it. Yeah. Well, so I have a friend, you know him, Grant Smith. He works in radio up in Denver. His girl makes knit microphone socks, and they're super cool, dude. And she makes some American flag ones, dude. They're badass. I love everything about them. I'm
gonna have to contact him and see if she'll knit up a dick,
a penis flavored one.
You're gonna come down here and be like, "Wait a minute, my microphone.
This tastes delicious. What is wrong? Oh my god, I'm gay." Well, we all knew it was coming. So Junior says, "Sounds good." Well, thanks, Junior. Really appreciate that. You're listening to the fastest veteran produced podcast on live radio, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is like getting kicked in the dick as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to get an advocate if you're going to have something advocate for you, you don't want it to be our nation's Department of Veterans Affairs.
Yeah.
Gotta be a better way.
Especially as upset as I am currently with the VA for personal reasons. They can jump off a fucking cliff. But I still go back to that. We're featured as the
number one fastest growing
veteran podcast, and we constantly say fuck the VA.
Yeah, which I mean,
we talk about how jacked up they are. And that's how they fail.
How I know they've
keep going.
Never, ever, and how they're killing our friends. And that's how I know they've literally never listened to anything that we do.
But I still go back to, I think there's somebody out there that has listened and was like, "Oh, I'm going to slide this in because I want to say fuck the VA too," And he's just like, he or she's like, "You know what? We're going to put them right in the front."
They didn't even tell us about it. We got the email from a listener. Randall sent us an email and he's like, "Hey, congratulations on being the number one." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about, man?" And he's like, "Check your VA email." And I'm like, looking at it. "Oh, well, would you look at that?" Well, wow. I guess we know who's literally never heard our radio show. Whatever, man. Folks, if you don't know, do you know what About Face Media is? We take veterans who are transitioning, veterans and first responders who are transitioning out of their service, out of the military, whatever it may be. We give them a microphone, a laptop, and a soundboard, and we say, "Tell your story." And that's what About Face Media is. That's our nonprofit.
Create your show, make your podcast, have an outlet.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be your military story. You want to talk about fly fishing. You want to talk about car engines, whatever. And it used to just be called About Face Radio, but our team went on and we have people now like Kim Lenling that are like authors and shit. Did you get an email from Kim, by the way?
I don't do well at checking email. Maybe.
So
I don't think so.
Kim is writing a book about pet owners. And I immediately thought of you, and I'm like, "Oh, you've got to talk to Seth," because no one has better dog stories than Seth does. So if you haven't already, and I'll forward it to you if you want to, but it's awesome. She's looking for 2,000 words, just a small chapter. Talk about your pet.
Okay, I don't have to write it, right?
I mean, knowing you, I would put your phone in front of your face and just dictate something.
Oh yeah, I do good at talking.
I call myself an author, but I've never actually written anything. All I do is plug in the app on my phone and just press play and let it record. Okay. I don't write shit, dude.
Didn't think so.
Yeah.
It always just, when I put pen to paper, like it's great for me for work. I work on a pen and paper when it's work stuff. Mm-hmm. But if I start writing something that's for somebody else, all of a sudden it just drizzles on and on and on. Well, and it goes all over the place, and I end up with 20 different stories that have nothing to do with the relevance of what I'm talking about. And
if you are listening, because I see some of our listeners jumping, if you are listening from WTF Moments, in just a little while, we're going to have Combat Vet Abroad on the show. He's going to talk to us all about, if you've ever thought about being an expat and moving to one of those other countries like Rambo did, he's going to talk to us all about that. You're going to want to stick around for that. We got to figure out, have we decided on a combat, Carl, for this week? There's too many to choose from right now.
There is always too many to choose from. Things in the headlines. I was thinking about something, and I'm going to test your historical knowledge, in which I know you're going to have the answer to this. But there's a lot of things going
on. Johnny Cash. Did I win?
No.
Damn it.
There's a lot of things going on in politics right now, and one of them has to do with allowing Trump to be on the ballot, right?
Yep.
So has there ever been in history another president
a
certain political group was trying to pull off the ballot? In case any of you are listening and don't know, back in 1860, the Democrats, that wonderful terrorist cell that is running our fucking country. Sorry, it's not a political show. But,
we avoid politics.
In 1860, they tried to take Abraham Lincoln off of the ballots. Okay. What ensued after that?
Our nation went to war.
A fucking civil war, and he won the election. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it would be in their best interest to let it go. If that's who gets voted, that's who gets voted. I'm not even saying I'm voting for the guy. I don't know who else is out there. I have a tendency to lean a little bit right, but
how the fuck did you just say that with a straight face? A little bit right.
Well, it's because I'm right.
I always am hesitant to get into politics in the show. Because I know John's going to send an email later tonight. Listen, motherfucker, it's a nonprofit.
You can't be political on the show. So I'm trying to stay away from a little bit, but I am a little bit right. Okay. If I were to lean a direction, it's towards that direction. Okay.
If you could pick anyone, alive or dead, right now to be the president of your nation, who would you pick? Anyone, any human being on the planet.
Me.
That's a good answer. Why do you say that?
No, it is. No, I would feel miserably at that.
How do you figure?
Because
you would park the 1st Armored Division on the southern border, the 1st Infantry Division on the northern border, call everybody back from overseas, and by the way, open up all the DFACs, and hey, it's Christmas time, we're having fucking dinner in the DFAC. Who's next?
Yeah, that would happen. I would definitely I would not get rid of the VA, but I would restructure it. The VA,
look at us, we differ.
Would turn into mental asylums.
Ooh.
Not for veterans, just in general. We have gotten away from that, and now we have a lot of people with mental health issues inside of prisons when they don't necessarily need to be in prison. They need to be in a mental asylum.
Okay.
Right? Healthcare would be or veteran healthcare would be turned back into Medicaid or whichever one when you get old, like you
privatize it. Essentially,
privatize it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Turn it back over
to
the economy.
Yeah, turn it back over to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I wouldn't have fucking bullshit where your GI Bill expires for.
This sounds like a personal vendetta.
Yeah. So I have to stop my classes now because I have lost my educational benefits because the VA fucking sucks.
If you have somebody who's good with VA educational benefits, like, you know how we have Allie on the show, who will be here in just a little while, by the way. If you have somebody that's good with educational benefits, we would like to have them on the show, and we like to make that a spot on the show. Like how we have Allie come on and talk about veteran, your healthcare benefits and your claim and whatnot. We're getting to that point where our veterans' education benefits needs to be talked about a lot more, because there's a lot to it between post 9/11 GI Bill, Chapter 31, Voc Rehab's not called Joke Rehab anymore. My daughter applied for Chapter 35. Oh, she's ineligible because she's going to school in Wyoming instead of Colorado. It's this huge pain in the ass. So
a lot of the things are simply just things we don't know. Like
Junior says Cassius Clay for president. Really? Okay. All right, Junior, you're allowed to have your opinion. Eric Reed, I want your answer on this one. Who would Eric Reed, if you could have anyone alive or dead for president of your nation, who would you pick? You guys sound amazing, but still faces for radio. Yeah, we get that a lot.
Current politicians, I think I would pick Jim Jordan.
Why? A good answer. Why do you say that?
Because he has some nuts to stand up and say what he believes in and to protect America first and to stand up for Americans first. So
I don't believe that any politician really does that.
I agree with that. But I said amongst what we have to pick from the soup fucking bowl of shit. Who do you have that's a current?
Jim Jordan's a good answer.
Okay, but who do you have that's a current? Actually, a politician that's
Rand
in the mix.
Paul.
Okay,
Rand Paul. Yeah, I'm down with the Rand Paul camp.
Okay.
Again,
I can do that.
Just like you, he'd park the 1st Armored Division on the southern border, 1st Infantry on the northern border. Yeah, the United States Navy would surround our fucking shoreline, and we get back to, hey, this is our country, motherfuckers. That's just my And he releases every year the whole this is what Congress is spending your money on. And I love that. Like, he's the one that identifies, what do you know? We're currently spending $12 million on researching the mating habits of the fucking Congolese cockroach. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Why am I spending money on this stuff?
Some politician is part of that and wants to line those pockets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, who do we have on a couple of weeks ago? And they're like, our nation needs more statesmen and less politicians. And I agree with that statement.
I totally agree with that.
Like, it shouldn't be a career.
No.
Like, you should own a jiu-jitsu academy for your whole life. You should run for fucking Congress for 4 years, be a congressman for 4 years, go back to running your jiu-jitsu academy.
Yes. Just stay in touch with what the people really are and want.
Yeah, they want jiu-jitsu. I mean,
politicians are so far out of real life for Americans, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and they go in there and all they do is fucking.
And I think a lot of them actually went in with good intentions.
Lauren Boebert.
But they lose those good intentions by losing connection to real life.
Joe Jorgensen, Reed, there's no way you're a Joe Jorgensen supporter. I mean, I believe it, but I don't believe it. There's no way you're a Joe Jorgensen supporter. I've known you too long to believe that shit. Term limits for everyone. I agree with. See, but we have term limits, though. We have term limits every 4 years. We vote these jokers in or out, and that's how you get the Feinsteins who are in there till she dies. And you're like, how long was that chick in Congress for? Like fucking 64 years or something like that. But dude, it's not a career.
Yep.
Go back to the private sector.
So back to our private Carl.
Back to private Carl, because we only got a minute before we bring on our guest.
Is everybody trying to block any individual? I don't care who it is. Okay. If it's Rosie O'Donnell, if it's fucking Eminem, I don't care who that person is. You can't block them from being on the fucking ballot. Okay. Because if that's what the people want, and that's who they end up voting for, that's what happens. Okay. That is democracy. Right?
And they surprise you. Look at what happened when Arnold Schwarzenegger took over California. He did pretty good.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either. I was like, oh man, we're just going to start issuing fucking mandatory steroids.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Everybody gets a cigar. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. You never know.
What do you call? And Ronald Reagan, one of my all-time favorite presidents. I mean, everybody laughed at him. He was an actor. The actor's running for president or governor of California.
Yeah, and he's gone down as historically one of
the greatest ones ever. Yeah, look at you.
Just like Abraham Lincoln, by the way.
We'll see.
There's like so many 4-letter words and like
hey man, it's your show. Do it as you will.
That one's really been chewing at me. It just really bothers me. Looking back in history, we're allowing it to happen again. The Democrats tried to take Abraham Lincoln off of the ballot. We had a civil war and we freed slaves.
I don't wish.
And somehow we've turned and pointed fingers at the Republican Party as being the racist. You guys literally tried to block the man who freed slaves and abolished slavery, tried to keep him off the ballot, and now you're trying to keep this guy off the ballot. Can't do that for anybody. I don't care who it is. If you qualify to run for office, meaning you're an American citizen, like we can't have Russian citizen so-and-so that just decides to run, but no, we have to have an American, like some very basic things. Okay. Let him run for office.
I'm late bringing our guest on, but I want your answer to a question. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No matter how bad of an idea it might be, if the people vote for him, that's what the people wanted.
Elections
and I think a lot of people are stupid, right? Yeah. Elections have consequences, but we got to learn from our consequences, Anyway, go ahead. What's the question?
Do you believe in required service from individuals? Like Israel does, should every 18 to 24-year-old serve in their nation?
I think it's a good idea, but I don't know if it should be required, because there's some amazing patriotic Americans out there. And I go back and forth on this one, but here's my devil's advocate on why maybe not. Is because there's some amazingly intelligent, well thought, what was I going to say? Individuals out there that might have tried to go in and they had flat feet, or they had asthma or something like that, but they could have done amazing things in politics. So I kind of go back and forth on that. And you can't really, it's got to be one or the other that you put forth. But I'm like, well, it's dependent on the individual. But I see both sides of the token. I don't see anything necessarily wrong with it. I just think it might exclude some individuals that would be great for the position. But yeah, it would solve a lot of problems.
Do you see that comment?
What?
Cassius Clay pushed Abe to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. I'm going to have to contact my kid's high school.
That is your semen. Hold on. That is your semen demon, not mine.
I'm going to have to contact his high school and be like, about that grade in history.
Wow.
I like what he did. That's some serious Bill and Ted stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are way over. I owe my guests some time, so we're going to go long on this interview. Hang on one second. I'm going to bring on John, the combat vet abroad. Hold still for a second, folks. Oh, can you do it? Can you? Can you? Oh, what are you doing? No, not that one. You're so close. Oh, he got it. Look at him. There it is. John, what's up, man? How are you?
I was waiting hearing you guys talk. I don't like being backstage where I can't comment on shit that you're saying.
This is the time. Send it.
No, I want to talk about what my subject is, not necessarily the political angle or.
This is your show, man. You talk about whatever you want. Hey, bring. This is your audience. You bring what you want.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to talk about veterans living abroad, which is my current project, and it's something that I dove into kind of accidentally because during COVID, I moved down to the Dominican Republic. I was living in Boston at the time, and they shut down the gyms. They shut down the bars. And I was like, I don't have any other hobbies besides working out and drinking. And I had a guy I deployed with who was Dominican. And when he retired from the military, he moved down here to the Dominican Republic where I'm at now. And I could see him on like social media, and I'm talking to him, and he's just living this incredible life. He's on the beach, enjoying himself. And I started talking to him, and eventually came down to visit, and it ended up just being a one-way trip where I got an apartment right away, paying $500 a month, and I started finding other veterans abroad, and I discovered veterans abroad are not just surviving, they're thriving, and it opened my mind to all these possibilities about how veterans can escape the nonsense and bullshit from the United States.
The kind of bullshit we're talking about tonight on our opening up our show.
The exact bullshit you're talking about. And when I talk to veterans, about, hey, why did you move abroad? That's kind of the first answer is, the bullshit in the States. But the real thing is there's kind of like three main reasons, I would say. So you have first, cost of living, inflation, kind of the financial aspect of things. Because down here or in other places, you can live such a higher quality life for lower money. And if you guys are veterans like me, enlisted veterans or whatever, chances are you're not rich because you don't get rich unless you're working in Congress, if you're working for the government. Your second reason, you're going to have mental health because people are discovering, hey, a peaceful life exists kind of outside of that. Here, you kind of have the island vibe, those types of things that make your day-to-day life just so much more peaceful, happier, more satisfying. And your third, what you guys were talking about, is political division. As veterans, we're such communal people. We love teamwork and working together. And then we get out of the military into kind of this fragmented, divided society. And veterans just can't feel at home in places like that. You cannot heal in a place of toxicity. And for veterans, this political division really fucking hurts us more because we're people that are come together. If you think about your basic training or boot camp experience, it's actually like one of the most fucking beautiful things in the world. Like my infantry boot camp, you have all these people from all over the countries, all classes, all, races, all religions. You come together and you form a team out of these people. I mean, can you picture like any grabbing Americans randomly and forming a team out of them in today's world? And, you know, like tonight, I went out to dinner with some of my veteran expat friends, all military guys, retired down here to the Dominican Republic. And we don't even talk politics. We talk conspiracy theories and working out and traveling and dating and kind of like sports and the things people are supposed to talk about. But the United States has been so consumed by this toxic and divisive political environment that it makes veteran mental health problems kind of worse. Because if you're already struggling and then you're living in an environment where people are fucking screaming and waving signs at each other all the time, it makes your healing that much more difficult.
No argument. John, so this is my fault. I didn't do this well. And I'm supposed to be the semi-pro here, so I apologize. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about your military service. What branch of service were you in? When did you serve, bud?
The only one.
I was in the Army as an infantryman and deployed twice to Afghanistan, 2010 and 2012 with the 101st Rakistan. So I had a really great military career. I ended up getting medically retired after a couple IEDs in Afghanistan and finished up my career, got out of the military and discovered those military benefits, military retirement, go a lot further in other places.
So you, like you said, you are in the Dominican Republic right this second. But as you and I have been setting up for this interview and been talking over the last few weeks, you're all over the place. You don't just hang out there. You go to places like Thailand. You go all over the place, which, I mean, that's Rambo's story right there. I mean, you can tell us if you're actually Rambo.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, all those countries. You know, when I first got to Thailand, I was actually teaching English there. So when I got out of the military, I took a teaching job teaching English in Thailand. And can I just say, you know, students in Thailand are so much better than students in America. They bow to you all the time. They do all the homework. There's no fucking around in class. You can still hit kids in classes in Thailand. You know, if kids don't pay attention, you smack them with the ruler. I didn't smack them, but the other teachers did. The Thai teachers. But I spent a little bit
of time in Thailand, and smacking is okay for pretty much any, person of authority in the situation. Yeah.
And they respect their elders. They respect teachers. And having that respect. I mean, I did my student teaching when I went, you know, for my teaching certifications in New York, and getting cursed at by like 6th and 7th grade kids coming from like the military background just was something I could not accept or live with. And so I ended up going to Thailand, taking a teaching job. And then I ended up, you know, getting into kind of education more. I did my master's degree at Harvard, and then I got to talk to Congress about some issues. And I tried working kind of within that system, within like, you know, I went to Congress, I drafted legislation for the Veterans of Foreign Wars and Student Veterans America. And it kind of got me nowhere, kind of like what you guys are talking about with some of the VA stuff and everything. And then I realized that maybe, you know, I have to find a different angle with helping veterans. And I realized the veterans living abroad aspect is something that nobody talks about, nobody knows about. You're talking about GI Bill in the intro, you know, using your GI Bill abroad. People don't really know how to do that. They don't know how awesome opportunities you have to use your GI Bill abroad and, you know, how to go about that and earn those dollars, live in a different country, have a great experience. So those are the types of things I'm trying to bring to the veteran community, just kind of information, because so many veterans I talk to are like, oh, I can't get my VA benefits abroad. I'm like, bro, of course you can. Or sis, of course you can. You know, those are your benefits. You earn them. They can't tell you where to live. You can live anywhere in the world and receive those benefits. So kind of dispelling some of those myths was one of the first things I kind of dove into with getting into it, as well as things like healthcare. We have veteran centers in the Dominican Republic where veterans can get their service-connected healthcare. I get better healthcare here in the Dominican Republic, not paid for a dime. The VA pays for it, than I did in the United States. 100%.
I believe every word of it. I believe every word of it.
And part of that is because how the system is set up. So the system is privatized here to where when I go to the Dominican doctor, to the massage therapist, to the chiropractor, to whatever, they turn around and bill the VA. So they are very anxious to get me in the office because they can charge the VA for those treatments. So it kind of works in a great way for veterans because these organizations here are anxious to treat you. They're like, hey, let's do group therapy. Let's do aqua therapy. Let's build community. Let's have a barbecue. Let's do all these things. So it's pretty cool to get that kind of superior treatment than I did in New York VAs.
So Nana Judge wants to know, what about your free guide on vets living abroad? I feel like Nana is a plant, and I'm a huge fan of Nana all of a sudden.
The veterans living abroad thing has like blown up to where.
Yeah.
So I started, like, I've gotten, now it's been such a cool journey to take that, because I started writing articles originally on my blog, like veterans living in the Dominican Republic, and I kind of described like how these veteran centers work, how veterans can get healthcare and treatment, and how you can receive your VA benefits here, and how like you can live here and swim in the ocean every day and eat fresh food and kind of have this higher value of life. And I started getting honest questions. So it kind of made me realize, like, okay, there's a huge gap in knowledge. So I traveled to a few different countries, to Costa Rica, to Mexico, to Colombia, to Thailand, where all these places have veteran organizations. There's American Legions in Mexico, there's VFWs in Thailand and the Philippines, because veterans living abroad is far from kind of a new thing. A huge exodus of veterans happened after the Vietnam War. Vietnam veterans came back to the States, were horribly mistreated. A lot of these guys were like, okay, well, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. I'm going to take my benefits and I'm leaving. So now in kind of our age of veterans, the Iraq and Afghanistan type of veterans, we're starting to see this again. And especially in like 2024, when you're seeing the problems in America, the political division in America, the high cost of living in America, if you can get a dope house in Mexico with a pool and a maid and still belong to an American Legion there and go hang out with your veteran buddies, then why would you be in the United States? Especially when you look at things like remote work. I work from my computer. Why would I be paying rent in New York City when I'm on a military retirement?
Dude, you are setting a trend. You literally are setting a trend.
I know.
I can hear the gears turning in his head right this second.
Why don't you guys come shoot next month down here? I'll set you up in a nice house. It'll be a good time.
We need to make sure we exchange our contacts after the show. I met my new best friend.
Do you think we could broadcast this show from the Dominican Republic?
I'm pretty sure.
Could we?
You
think we could?
We figured out how to set this up once. We can do it twice.
I mean, come on. This took 2 years to get to this spot right here. But I mean, yeah.
We can do it by the pool if it's during the day. We can do it by the beach to show veterans like, hey, we have to open this up to get veterans. We can't ignore the fact anymore that fucking 22 veterans kill themselves in the United States. You know how many veterans kill themselves who live abroad? There are fucking 20,000 American veterans that live here in the Dominican Republic where I'm at. 20,000, all the way from Vietnam to our era of veterans. And these veterans are living high quality lives off of their military benefits. If you go to Mexico, there are over 10 American Legion posts in Mexico. If you go to the Philippines, to Thailand, you have all these veterans. When I was living in Thailand, I had a sick ass apartment for $300 a month. And when you kind of show people that stuff, you're like, okay. And that's why I wrote the Veterans Guide to Living Abroad, to answer the person's question, because there's kind of like an explanation needed to where like why veterans are leaving the United States. And some of it is some of the value systems here in the Dominican Republic. Like, I don't make any bones about it. I'm a religious person, and here God is an important part of everyday life. Family is an important part of everyday life. Community, that people get together to do things. And it feels good to disconnect from that stress in America, because, kind of my story is when I came here, I was on every medication that the VA gives you, when you go through their treatments and cycles for anxiety, to sleep, for depression, all those things. And I came here, and after a while, I just stopped needing those medications to sleep. I swim in the ocean pretty much every single morning. I eat healthier food. I'm outside all the time. Like where I'm from in Iowa, it gets dark at like 5 p.m. in the wintertime. It's super depressing. And especially, I don't know where but it's like that, and when you're in Colorado, so yeah, live outside, connect with all these healthy living. I can go hike in the jungle and swim in waterfalls, and I don't have to stress about being in kind of the American rat race, because I felt like as veterans, we've been at war enough. I spent years of my life in the Middle East. Now it's like, okay, I want peace, good for everything, but I'm done.
I was talking to somebody a couple of weekends ago, talking about how you were coming up on the show, and talking about doing the expat thing. And she's this very uninformed young lady, she's like, oh, well, it's going to take you at least $500,000 to get the visas that you need if you wanted to work in one of those countries, something like that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, where are you finding this information from? And she's like, oh, that's just what I've heard. I'm like, that's not even close to accurate. Does it strike you that many veterans have $500,000 just laying around and that's how they end up moving to the Dominican Republic?
And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the guide. You know, one of the first pages of it is myths about living abroad. And some of it gets into some things, like in the Thailand, for example, as a foreigner, you cannot own property. They have rules against that. If you're get a visa or whatever, you can't own property. But here in Dominican Republic, you have full property rights. You know, so if I want to buy, I rent because my rent's $500 a month, and I have a sick apartment with a pool complex, and I have a maid and all that stuff. Which, do you think I'd be living like that in any other place in the world? Of course not.
No.
So there are like different countries have different rules, and so on my articles and my guide, I get into kind of like the top countries for veterans. I think veterans should be around other veterans. So here in the Dominican Republic, we have a lot. In Colombia, there's an exploding population of veterans. I think that's because they like Colombian chicks. But there's also a ton of in Thailand and the Philippines and all those countries. In Europe,
well, and you make an excellent point.
And so many veterans, if you think about it, are immigrants themselves. A lot of the people that we served with are first and second generation immigrants. The guy that told me to come down to the Dominican Republic was born here, went to the United States, joined the military, came back down here, bought what you would call like a mansion in the United States with a pool and all that stuff, because he speaks the language, he knows the culture. So you have all these veterans from Central and South America that end up coming back to their home countries and living high quality lives after their service.
So what about you? Do you ever have to come back to this? Do you have to come back to the United States a certain number of times per year or anything?
So the Dominican Republic is probably one of the most unique countries in the world in the fact that you can kind of just come here and stay as long as you want. So when you leave, you have to pay an exit fee if you stay over like 30 days. So I think, I end up going back to the States or traveling sometimes to speak at colleges for some of the student veteran stuff, or just because I like to travel. And so I think the longest I stayed here straight was like 8 months. And when I left, I had to pay like $75 or something. So
$75, that's it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I got a buddy who was a retired sergeant major, and he came here and stayed for 7 years. And when he left, I think he had to pay like $900, which is
wow.
But he just retired, came down here and was said, and he finally went back like when his mother died or something. But so there are countries that have different immigration stuff. And that's why I kind of get into some of that in the guide, because you can go to Mexico, for example, for 6 months, or Costa Rica for 6 months with no issues. So a lot of veterans, what they'll do is just, go back to the States for a couple of days and then come back to Mexico or Costa Rica or wherever.
What about the language? I mean, do you speak?
So my Spanish is when I lived in Thailand, I took one Thai class and I walked out after like 6 minutes. I was like, there's no fucking way that
Is it just me, or does it almost sound like every time they're talking, it's almost like they're angry, but they're not.
That's just Sandy.
Yeah. It's like ping, pong, ping, and I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like dodging words.
That might be just because you're defensive and you're ready. Like, what are they?
Joe Allen is listening to the show right now. He's like, I ain't saying shit, motherfucker.
I'm gonna get stabbed. No, their language. I found very different than others stylistically.
Yeah,
I found the same way where I was trying to learn words. And then I would think I had a word, and they're like all laughing, like, "No, that's not the word." And
I wouldn't even bother trying to do that. But there are some languages that are easier to learn. In the guide, I get into the top English language speaking countries. The Philippines, for example, everyone speaks English. You don't have to worry about it. Here in the Dominican Republic, if you come to expat type of areas, you can get by with just speaking English. My Spanish is, we'll say, passable. Like, I can get by in any Spanish speaking country, but I wouldn't sign a contract in Spanish without having someone look at it. So there are a lot of, Belize has a lot of veterans because everyone speaks English in Belize. Panama has a ton of veterans because the English is so high there. A lot of veterans don't want to learn another language, so they go to a country that English is, good to go. But if you go to expat areas, you'd be shocked in the world how many people speak English. As Americans, we're like the only people who speak one language. So if you go anywhere, you can kind of get by, especially with Google Translator and things. And if you're in expat communities, you're going to be fine with English usually.
Where can I get this guide?
So on my website, johnhdaviswriter.com, it's a totally free resource. There's no like affiliate links or bullshit in it. It's just free information for veterans. I also have information on veterans living in Colombia, Thailand, Costa Rica, Mexico, Dominican Republic, with some like specific information because I traveled to these countries. I met veterans living there. I talked to veteran organizations in the countries and got some, information so I could put this kind of firsthand out. And then in my guide, I connected with, a veteran living in Panama. And he wrote a section on veterans living in Panama because he's been there for like 20 years. So he helped me out. And I'm trying to do a second edition of a guide, in a few months or something like that. And that's one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you guys, because I want to connect with other veterans living abroad. Like, hey, if there's a veteran living in Brazil, send me how veterans get health care, GI Bill, all those things in Brazil.
Sounds like you need a radio show, sir.
I know.
I happen to know it.
Seriously, like a 1 hour weekly show on living abroad as a veteran.
I'd listen to that shit every fucking week.
Totally
yeah, do other countries. You could talk about a variety of things. And we're uniquely suited as veterans to live abroad. We know how to take care of ourselves, and so many veterans are stationed abroad during our military careers. That's why so many veterans end up like living in Germany, because they were stationed in Germany and loved it, or married a German girl or guy or whatever, and ended up staying over there. So, and we also know how to be flexible. We understand like personal security. So when I go places like Colombia, I'm not really worried because I have like a decent plan in mind. I do some recon. I think about what I'm doing. I'm not going to get like blackout drunk somewhere I shouldn't. So I think veterans kind of are great citizens for other nations because we also make everything better. In the military, you leave everything better than what you found it. Here in the Dominican Republic, I'm part of a team of U.S. veterans and retired cops, and we run a youth boxing program. So for all these like underprivileged kids, we run like a boot camp for them and this kind of like cool stuff. So we really like do things to give back to the community. There's like an active participation of veterans here. You're looking ahead, is what?
No, just because like as you talk more and more, Rob, I'm like, this dude's gonna end up being my best friend.
Yeah.
I'm a pro boxer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you come down, hey, we're having fights Super Bowl weekend. I actually got a big villa rented. I got some extra bedrooms if you want to come.
There you go, man. You're off to Dominican Republic. Sounds like we're broadcasting remotely.
We're broadcasting remotely. Screw this.
So on like Super Bowl weekend, we have a big veterans event here where all the veterans get together. There's tons of different veterans. We all hang out. We have like a meet and greet. Then we're putting on these fights, and then everyone's watching the Super Bowl. So one of the things that's been awesome for me is I feel like veterans abroad really have the community angle in focus, to where we work to take care of one another in ways that veterans in the States kind of don't. Like we look out for one another when you meet another veteran. So there's all these like really cool things about being a veteran living abroad.
Alex Vergo says, hey, if you get a chance, can you talk about, I'm not sure why I'm not seeing that comment on my side over here. If you get a chance, can you talk about Champ VA? Your page convinced my spouse and I to move to the Philippines.
Absolutely. So there are, in the Philippines especially, probably has the strongest veteran network. The Philippines has the only VA outside of the United States. So really? You can go to it's the only VA outside the United States. So you can go there and get every type of treatment that you get in the VA in the States. So, but as far as like Champ VA and the foreign medical program goes, so Champ VA is kind of a special program for spouses and things like that of disabled or even, unfortunately dead veterans or whatever, their spouses can get healthcare through this. So if you go to the Philippines, which is probably one of the best countries for veterans for a lot of reasons, one being the English thing and two being the VA hospital, there are Facebook pages specifically for veterans in the Philippines, because I think there's, I don't know, maybe like 30,000 veterans that are actively living there. A lot of those veterans are Vietnam veterans too, that are kind of like dying off because they obviously left America after the Vietnam War. So as far
I think you're going to see a pretty big resurgence though with GWAT vets.
Yeah. So now I think that there are a lot of GWAT vets who are like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this nonsense. I'm sick of the bullshit. If I can take my benefits and live in a different country, especially with things like remote work or whatever, then why wouldn't you do it? And so I'm working on an article in the Philippines because I'm going there in like 2 months. And I'm going to have a little bit more specific resources and social media stuff and all that.
Tell us about the negatives. You haven't talked about any of the negatives. There's got to be one or two things. I'm sure the number one question you get asked by veterans is, hey, can I have my guns?
Yep, that is the number one question, actually. And a lot of veterans message me like angry things like, I'm not giving up my fucking guns. I'm like, okay, you don't have to. I'm not telling you have to come abroad. And that's why I tell the people is I'm not like putting out information to encourage, or there's no money involved for me by telling me for you to move to Mexico or something like that. So the gun thing is one aspect that you kind of have to leave in America for the most part. If you become like a dual resident of the Dominican Republic, you can get like one shotgun and one pistol, and they are prohibitively expensive. You're going to have to pay 3 times as much as you do in the United States. So that's one of the negatives for sure. And there's some things where living abroad, if you're not around other veterans, you can deal with things like loneliness. So I do get into some of the cons of living abroad. In the guide, I have a section on cons of living abroad. Some of it's language barriers. A lot of veterans become frustrated with language barriers and communication issues. But it's easier than you think to learn a new language if you're living in a place. I moved here and I spoke 0 Spanish. I started talking to Dominican girls and started going to bars and gyms and meeting veterans and all these things. And now my Spanish is, pretty good compared to where I was. So that's definitely one of the cons. But as far as and then families is an also con. If you have wife and the kids, obviously, that complicates life everywhere. That makes life more.
You can be in Idaho and that'll complicate shit.
Yeah, that's gonna make stuff harder everywhere. But a lot of international schools are a lot better than people think they are. I think that I was touring international schools in Costa Rica a few months ago with some groups, and the education there was far superior to anything American public school kids are getting. I mean, especially in bigger cities. Oh my God, because English is a language of instruction, and you have schools that are set up to get kids into colleges in the United States. They train them for, what's so cool about this school is they were like really putting an emphasis on like financial education on these schools, because they want kids to understand money. They want kids to understand debt. They want kids to understand how to be an adult, and they're more flexible with their education being private institutions. But the problem is, of course, you have to pay. So if you're in like Costa Rica, it'll run you anywhere from like 4 to 15 grand a year per kid. And some parents would be like, well, that's quite a bit of money. So things like that can be cons. But as far as for me, I haven't really experienced a ton of cons personally, just because I'm just so happy, like day to day. Like people will try and give you the gringo prices or the foreign prices for Thailand, as you know, where they try hitting you up a little bit more money for taxis or at the store. So if I ask for a price, I'm going to get a little higher than, my Dominican friend.
Yeah. I get it. I absolutely get it. Well, and you made a good point with family. What about the spouses? Because, hey, yeah, I'm all on board for this. And I'm sure my wife is listening to the show right now like, hey, motherfucker, we are not moving to the Dominican Republic. Put that shit out of your head right this second. But like, just as an example, the spouses, are there opportunities down there for spouses and in these other countries?
Well, I think that it's not only veterans that want to escape the bullshit of the United States, it's families and spouses as well. I've been surprised how many like military wives have contacted me, or people with families who are like, I think that I'd like to go. And retiring, let me put it like this. When I was growing up in Iowa, retiring to Florida used to be like the goal for people. I want to retire to Florida. Now that's like too expensive for your average military family. But you can buy an amazing property somewhere like the Dominican Republic. And then it's kind of an adventure. And for veterans and veteran families, they're used to moving. Like a move for a military family is not anything new. So I think
not catastrophic.
There are a lot of families moving abroad. but it remains kind of single male and female veterans. And I've been surprised how many female veterans I've met or contacted who live abroad and do really well.
Well, I mean, hey, I mean, who wouldn't want to come down to South America, surf, do yoga, and chill out all day? I'm down with it. I'm all the way down. I mean, you're in cigar smoking heaven right now, and dude, yeah, I'm all the way down with what you're doing. We're getting some of the hard hitting questions. I'm not sure if you can see them all. From a scale of Joe C to Kid Rock, how tall are you?
Who is Joe C?
I have no idea. Who's Patrick Aaron?
Okay, all these questions are fair.
Man, feel free to ignore our listeners. That's okay. Sometimes we get some good ones.
You got to ignore most of the people on there. I will tell you a funny dating abroad story. So I enjoy dating chicks. I'm a single dude abroad, and last time I was in New York City, I walked up to a girl and she said, "You're too short for me." So the answer is I'm 5'6", which is not not towering height.
Edgar M. Artie, would I as a vet be eligible to use my VA loan to purchase a home in some of these countries?
So there are banks that will work with you, especially here in Dominican Republic. There are more loaners, more loan places that are veteran friendly, but you cannot use the VA loan specifically anywhere other than Puerto Rico. You can use it. In Guam, you can use it. Any U.S. territories, but you cannot use it outside the United States. But one of the benefits is renting is very cheap, and buying properties, let's just say what you would consider $1 million house there in Colorado, I would consider a $200,000 house here.
Okay. I like the math that he did right there. That's kind of good. All right. So my hetero life mate over here is going to give you the on the way out the door instructions. Man, this has been an excellent eye-opening interview, but he's all yours.
All right. So at the end of your time with us, we give you some time to yourself to do whatever you want. So if we glossed over a really cool part that you want to talk about, if there is a random subject matter you want to talk about, we give you about 2 minutes to talk about whatever you want. Please do include your contact info, your socials, et cetera, for what you do, John.
I appreciate that. So I'll give you a story of someone who messaged me on Instagram 2 days ago. I had a veteran message me on Instagram. He was asking about wheelchair-friendly countries. And I'd never given this any serious thought. And this is kind of an eye-opening thing that, I was made me very emotional because he contacted me and then I was like, well, I hadn't thought about that. Can you explain a little bit more? And he was paralyzed in Iraq in the early on invasion of Humvee. And he's like, well, I saw some of your stuff online. I started to read the guide. I have a wife and 2 kids, and our VA benefits and my disability doesn't go very far where we live. And I was like, what the fuck? You have a guy who, being paralyzed, in a lot of ways is way worse than losing a limb or anything like that. He's explained to me, I need certain medical care for my wife, because I can't go to the bathroom. I have 2 young kids and we're struggling financially. So I was thinking maybe we could relocate somewhere else. And, when you see stuff like that, you're like, man, the fucking veterans who give everything, their bodies, their souls, a lot of these guys are just getting fucked over by the VA, getting fucked over by the country. And that's when I realized, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of one another. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to give this living abroad veterans thing a go to try and help people who were in the position that I was in, where they were on medication or suicidal or whatever, living in the United States. And, a lot of the responses I've gotten have been so cool to get those types of things. So I would say that, and my website has all of my articles. I just got a TikTok 2 months ago, so I'm trying to figure that shit out. If you want to go check it out, it's johnhdaviswriter.com. I don't only write about living abroad stuff. That's actually kind of just a fun topic that's truly to help people. My book on affirmations. So I have 365 days of veteran affirmations written with military culture, military language. I think the power of affirmations in a daily mental health routine can be really important. My book for student veterans which is the Association United States Army book to help student veterans be successful in college. This is kind of like my main thing. I talk to veterans about education in the United States, and then just have recently dove into the living abroad stuff, which is more like popular and Instagram friendly and stuff like that. I also have a challenge book I wrote with my friend Pat Anger, who's an NFL player, or who was an NFL player. We got it's a 90-day thing, and we got a workout every week from an athlete and a workout every day from a combat veteran. So there's workouts from like professional football players, from WWE stars, to cool people that my friend Pat knows, and then 12 veterans, things like that. So we also get into, because once you get out of the military or you stop playing sports, you kind of lose that competitive drive or the kind of environment where you're constantly put in growth mode. So we wanted to bring that back to people because he retired from the NFL about the same time I retired from the Army. And I think that's about fucking it.
All right. So we, at the end of our show, always do a safety brief. I know you've been in one of those before. Do you have one? Hell yeah. Do you have something to add to our safety brief?
No, you guys come down to Dominican Republic. We'll get some rum. There's no safety here. You can do whatever you want. You can drink and drive. There's no rules.
Look who wasn't a sergeant major. What rank were you when you got out, man?
E6, staff sergeant.
Yeah, all right. So you've had to bail a soldier or two out. So yeah, you get it.
Yeah, of course. I had to get myself bailed out, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, we've all been there. We'll talk about that on the show.
No, I've never had to bailed out ever in my life.
You can't trust a man who hasn't been to war or been to jail.
Absolutely.
Ooh, good. That should be a T-shirt or a radio show. We're going to talk more. John, this has been one of my favorite interviews for a long time. And we've got a lot of really good comments as we've gone on throughout this interview. So this has been a really, really good time. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with John Ryder. You know him as Combat Vet Abroad. Check him out on all of the socials. Find his books. He wants you to move out of the United States and go live in another country and go experience the world. And I think that you should do that as well. We are an advocate for this as well. There's lots of opportunity there. John, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to spend a little bit of time. I know we went way long with your time, but thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of From the Ashes on About Face Media. It means a lot to us.
Thanks, guys. Really great conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome to meet you too.
Been.
Take care. Have a great rest of your night, sir.
Have a great night.
Let's see if I can do this.
Can you? You can. Look at you, man. You're getting really good at this.
Shnikes.
It's like you like run a radio show and shit. What'd you think?
That was amazing. That was legitimately one of my favorite guests and topics. Some good stuff in there.
You think it's something you'd ever consider doing?
Dude, I got not with my. I don't mean this in a bad way. Just not my family situation. Get kid on the way.
Oh yeah.
With a a little one. Like there's just those things. But prior to having a kid and getting out of the Army, I was traveling. So
well, like our situation. I mean, our kids are grown.
Yeah.
My kids are live-in dog sitters at this point.
Yes.
I mean,
live-in dog sitters.
My wife is addicted to her job and loves what she does. And other than that, that's what's. Yeah. I'll go live somewhere else.
I mean, I don't think I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Is live radio boring you? I'll try to make it more exciting.
Too much oxygen.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I would do. I don't know if I would permanently move somewhere or extended stay. I would do like 3 months a year.
It's reasonable.
I like living on my ranch, but I really
the ranch is
don't
pretty awesome.
Like December, January, February.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like sitting in the fields in a super secret location either.
I do not like dealing with Christmas shenanigans. I don't like the freezing cold of January and February. And I've said that for a long time. I wish I owned a condo in like Hawaii. I loved being in Hawaii. I wouldn't mind going for those 3 months. And then I don't even have to worry about any of the other country stuff. Or Dominican Republic, from the way you made it sound. I haven't been there yet, but I have been in Thailand. I'd totally go to Thailand for 3 months a year and just eat and train.
Yeah, I was going to say, and train.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I did when I was there. I legitimately trained at a minimum 6 hours a day, and at a minimum had 6 meals a day.
Trained boxing or Thai boxing?
Thai.
Do you think practicing Thai boxing made you the boxer that you were? or are, excuse me. I don't mean to say it that in past tense.
I think there's a culmination of why, like, I definitely am not, you can't put me into a category of stylistic because I've done martial arts since I was 4. Let me rephrase that. I've done combat sports, martial arts at some point since I was 4 years old.
Why did you reword that way?
Because I think there's a huge difference between a combat sport and a martial art. I've done both. So as I was saying, like, I'm not just going to say martial arts, but I do consider myself a martial artist, but I also am a competitive combat sports guy.
Okay.
So
I can get behind that.
But either way, I think that, every aspect of my jiu-jitsu affects my boxing.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
You know,
that makes complete sense.
Jiu-jitsu changes your approach on life and taking on tasks and all sorts of things like that, because it's such a problem solving amongst any other martial art. There is nothing that has the level of problem solving as freaking jiu-jitsu, because everything's a problem all the time. All you have is problems.
I often describe Chris Carter that way. He is a problem.
Yeah, I got a lot of them around. I got to quit teaching people stuff.
I wish you would.
I've had that conversation a lot the last week. I'm like, man, I like show like this really little tiny detail and trick to something I use all the time, and all my students are like, "Oh, you motherfucker!" And I'm like, "Yep, yeah, that's how you've been getting tricked for years."
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it does come up. It's subtleties. It does make the difference.
Absolutely.
Hang on, let me look up some stuff here because these names just got released, and I want to make sure that they. What else you got for the safety brief for this week?
Oh, I wasn't thinking safety brief. Do you have the Never Forgotten? If not,
I'm about to.
Okay. Do you have one that's perfect, or I have one that's really off the wall from what we usually do?
Go ahead, send it.
You want me to do this week? And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was asking if you got one for this week. So
I do, but give what you got.
This one is so different. But do you know who Michelle Young is? Have you heard about this?
It's a familiar name, but go ahead.
It's a familiar name. So Michelle Young is an influencer on social media.
Okay.
And a veteran.
Okay.
Has helped speak out about mental health, suicide.
Oh, that's why I know the name.
Yes.
Okay.
And she's hard to miss.
Okay.
She's on, pages like Military Curves and such like that.
Yeah. We're on the same page.
So she's easily drawn to from, military dudes and some women. So Staff Sergeant Michelle Young, a U.S. Army servicewoman who became a popular social media influencer through her fitness and fashion account, has died by suicide at the age of 34.
What?
Michelle was a beautiful soul, an amazing friend, a single mother, a soldier, and proof that you never know what someone is going through or what demons they may be fighting. We will never fill the gaps in our hearts and will always be left with questions, she added. Young served in the U.S. Army for 16 years after initially enlisting at the age of 18 and completed 2 tours in Afghanistan, according to the Daily Mail. News of Young's death came 2 days after she shared an Instagram post wishing her 12-year-old daughter, Gracie, happy birthday. So without going into this, huge article, I think every bit we do, we try and bring light to, make sure things are never forgotten. But folks, we truly do have a suicide problem in our community. If you ever followed Michelle or anything about her, like you would, again, a lot of times this happens where you're like, that's the last person I'd ever think of.
People say like
she was part of the community of helping the community with their mental health and their suicide problems. Like she was outspoken about it. And then, you never see it coming, or a lot of times, I don't want to say never because there's people we know that are in dark places.
Yeah.
But in her case, it was, I don't think you could ever see her being in a dark place from the way she portrayed herself or what was seen, and
you just never see it coming.
Obviously there was, there's obviously a dark place when,
what's the answer?
I don't know. When a 34-year-old single mom of a 12-year-old girl commits suicide, there was obviously a deep, dark place that she was in. And so none of us had the vaccine to being hit with the disease of mental health, depression, suicide, etc. So I read that one a lot the last day, and I really not because I knew her, not because I knew who she was and knew she was an advocate for lots of things in the community, but it hit different because of the way that I think not just me, but many people perceived her from, her talks and things like that. So,
I was going to talk about the 2 Navy SEALs, but
I came across that one too.
I wasn't ready for that one.
I would totally like to do that one next week. We definitely
we'll remember those 2 young men.
I read that one this afternoon. So,
folks, you've been listening to From the Ashes on About Face Media. If you know of people that are interested in working with About Face Media and are looking to have their own radio show, write a book, whatever the case may be, have them reach out to us. We sincerely appreciate all of your help and your support. Thighhuggers.com, Combat Flip Flops. Thank you for your support. Core 3 Drywall. Everyone that's ever made a donation to us, we can't thank you enough for keeping the show on the air. We sincerely appreciate it. Thanks for listening tonight, folks, and we'll see you next week.